languages, learning languages. You also have already probably heard that we have policy changes like a new AP credit policy, and Kathy will probably talk more about it, but it, for instance, means that students will have more time on campus to explore their interests, to learn more, learn the languages that they know better, or learn more, a second language, a third language. So I hope that we can respond to that opportunity. You may also have heard that the college has taken over summer programming. So that might be an opportunity to integrate instruction over the summer with academic year instruction, and provide additional opportunities for students for language learning. We also, but there are also, of course, challenges. The college now has gone, has changed the way that registration works for first years. We had a very cumbersome system that created, almost a situation of air traffic control during O week, when every single incoming student had to come through the second floor of Harper and meet with their advisors, and it was alphabetical, so that students at the end of the alphabet would get, of course, not the courses that they wanted. Now they will do this online, but it also, of course, means that for us, particularly languages, that we're going to have to shift some of our advertising online. We have to get the information out online, and that's going to be, as I said, a challenge and an opportunity. And Kathy can talk more about this. I mean, one of the things that I feel that we have been hampered by is that that one of our strengths, in some sense, has become a weakness, namely that we offer 60 different languages on campus in course format. I.e. we have, in some sense, 60 different language programs. And this decentralization, of course, has been one of the hallmarks of the academic culture at the University of Chicago. It means that we have a great diversity. We have individual people making decisions that reflect their particular needs, but it also means that it's sometimes difficult to respond to these kind of new challenges. So when I came to and the CLC, of course, is one of the attempts to sort of not necessarily centralize that, but to have a place where best practices are shared, where people come together and share their experience and learn from each other. And so when I came to Kathy and said, so well, if we wanted to try to address some of the issues of language instruction and put the language instructors sort of into dialogue together, what would we do? How would we, so to say, think if we wanted to think big? And that's what gave birth to what we have called the Language Pedagogy Innovation Initiative, that Kathy and her staff will talk more in detail about. But it is really an attempt to sort of say, come together and understand each other as a larger community that can help meet these challenges, but also, as I said, take advantage of the opportunity. As you know, it probably doesn't surprise you that we have seen the decline in language enrollments that many other institutions have seen over the last 15 to 20 years. But comparatively, we're still doing very well. And I hope that you will help me, or that you will let me help you, maintain it that way. The same goes for our majors. We're almost still at 20%. Our Ivy Plus peers are much lower than that. 20% of all college majors are humanities majors. But we have to work hard to keep it that way. Maybe we can increase it a little bit by being smart. And this is what we're trying to do with this initiative. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Kathy.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris. So I'd just like to share with you some changes and some policy issues that we talked about, some of these at the CLC advisory meeting. There are more issues now, and also to talk a little bit about how they can impact what we do in light of this proposal or this project, the initiative, and also to just think about how we present ourselves to students with the opportunities we have. So there's a lot going on, as Chris mentioned, and as he also mentioned, these things are challenges. They can also be opportunities. I have to say I was really disheartened when I heard in late February about the change in the registration for the first years, and I immediately thought of my Lichtel colleagues and thought, wow, what's going to happen? How are we going to recruit students? So now we're in that world, things have changed, so we have to think about what's going on and think about what we can do to position ourselves with those students. Chris also mentioned the larger size of the college. That also means there are more students that can take our language. So to the first point of the first years now registering in the summer, I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise because we've always kind of known that the first year students are hearing about majors and about the core, and they're really bombarded with a lot of information in that first week. So in a way, we were just a little more noise for some of those students. And that really looking ahead and thinking about the change in the AP credits and another issue, the summer when they enter or the autumn is maybe not the best time to be approaching students to think about taking more language. So we will definitely hold our Universe event or something like it in April, in third week of spring quarter, and really direct it toward rising third and fourth year students. We would invite all students, but we would be thinking about those rising third and fourth year students a little more than just entering first years. But we'll also be able to then catch the first year students at the end of their first year when they understand what they're doing a little bit more and can think about their language study. So I think, again, it's like a blessing in disguise. The other issue that Chris mentioned, the changing in the AP, there was a college committee that made decisions, and many fewer credits are going to be awarded to students who come in with AP tests. For example, art history used to give 3 courses for AP score. So this has been drastically pulled back. The AP policy for all of our languages remains the same. It never awarded credit. As most of you know, it just fulfilled a language requirement. That is remaining in place. Another change is that we now have essentially what is a residency requirement, meaning that all college students must do 38 of their 42 credits here on campus. Those must be University of Chicago credits. So this essentially translates into they have to be here for 4 years. So it's not going to be possible. So this now affects, of course, students entering this year. So it means that at the end of their coming into their third and fourth years again, students are going to have room. They're going to have electives, space for electives, and we want to be snagging those students to get them to think about either taking more of a language they already know or maybe starting a new language. So I really see that as having possibilities for both teachers of commonly taught languages, teachers of less commonly taught languages. So we want to be able to reach out to those students through the Universe event and with other events and really really make a case for language, and the program that's on the brochure on the tables, Ahmet is going to go into that in a little more detail. I think this is a way for us to really say, here's a way to do it, here are some things to make that very attractive. Another thing we can all be thinking about is offering trailer sections where it's possible. So for one thing, we know from the college that some students have openings in spring quarter of their first year, often because many of the core courses only have 2 courses in the sequence, and they find themselves in spring with a little breathing room. So maybe we should be offering 101 sections in the spring and to get them into our classes. That, of course, has a ripple effect because if they take 101 in the spring, we have to have something for them to do in the autumn. But thinking about offering trailers in the autumn, a section of 102, or we offer in German a section called 10201, our false beginners class, could also solve some other problems, like the students who don't place into 201 in the autumn, but don't need to start with 101. We can be capturing some of those students if we have these trailer sections. Many of the larger languages, of course, already offer them, but for some of the other languages who haven't in the past, or even some of the less commonly taught languages, is something to think about how to coordinate this in a way to really capture the students where they are. I've always felt that if we don't capture them, maybe that's not the right word, but that's the word I'm using, we lose them, right? So if they come in and they place into German 103 and I'm not offering 103 in the autumn, I lose them. So it's just something to think about, but I say this recognizing that it causes a ripple through your whole, or articulation in your whole program, that we have to think about. But along with that, we can get those students out of the 101 sections who don't belong there. We all have students in 101 in the autumn who aren't beginners. So if you have a trailer section, that's another place for those students to find a placement home and to keep learning the language and to keep them out of I know Arabic had that program, a very, very full 101s this autumn. Chinese had that problem. So we know there are students in those sections that are not true beginners. What could we be offering them? What kind of a course sequence could we be offering them? Another initiative, and we're piloting this in German this year, is creating intensive sequences. So we're piloting a German intensive sequence right now this academic year. We're teaching first and second year in 3 quarters. This counts as 200 units for the student. So again, this is something for a 3rd or 4th year student or a motivated graduate student. It also counts as 2 courses for the instructor, right? So that's in terms of course load, it counts as 2. This can also be an entry point for your false beginners, right? Because they have some knowledge of the language, and they aren't going to go into 102. Starting with a really intensive sequence lets them use the language knowledge they already have, and then keep going, and then get to second year, end of second year, what would be the end of the second year sequence. And Ahmet will talk again about some incentives and some programming to reward the students that decide to take that on. Another group I think we need to think about are heritage learners. The American Academy of Arts and Sciences did a study and cited heritage learners as the greatest wasted language resource in the country. Now, again, this is, more work for us or for you. I don't have the heritage learners in German, but we need to think of meaningful sequences for those students. They don't really belong in our traditional sequences. They have, and what's even, of course, more complicated, there are different levels and different profiles in different languages. Some students have literacy issues, some students have script issues. There are all kinds of issues. You all know what they are, but I'm sure we can all think of ways to create course sequences that really meet the needs of those students and let them reach professional proficiency in their heritage language. They're there kind of for the taking. And so we need to think about how we are not and could meet the needs of those students, and again, get them into those courses. And I admit, in writing up these notes, I'm thinking about the new financial model, the budgetary allocation model, which is another change this year, which means that our enrollments are going to be tracked with even more alacrity than in the past, because college enrollments in our courses mean money coming into our divisions. This is a fact. So aside from wanting to meet the needs of these students and wanting to teach our languages, we are thinking about we need to think about healthy enrollments, whatever that means. So this is our new reality, and I think we need to. This was one of the ideas behind this meeting, this summit, and also the timing of the new initiative. That it's kind of the moment to really rethink what we're doing and think about how we could be doing it better. I'm so glad to be able to announce our new brochure is out on the tables, the bright blue document. This will be in the CLC. We're going to take them over to admissions. We're going to have them in the Humanities Division office. We're going to put them in the Harper advisors' offices to advertise languages. So the CLC is now really taking on the role of, for my peers who are around my age, it's a little hard to read, but we're giving these out to young students. They have young eyes. Yeah, well, I know the color is, but I wanted something really bright, something that really stands out. We'll also be creating new videos from your languages. So many of you saw the ones that we were able to create at the end of in the spring. We want to create new videos, have them up on our website, and have our website really playing an outreach role, all right, for students. And the point being, students are using languages to do everything they do, not just language majors. Students are using languages across all disciplines, and we want to just, demonstrate that we know that. Another policy change, is that language courses taken at four-year institutions, four-year colleges and universities, will now be able to be transferred. This primarily happens with transfer students, but it'll also be allowed if a student goes and takes a course during the summer at their institution near their home, or whatever it might be. These language courses were never able to be transferred up until this autumn. This is a new policy. So it's like I said, it's primarily transfer students, but it could impact other students. But we need to be reaching out to those students. If they come in already with a year of Language X, we need to be inviting them into our programs. They can apply for flags. They can take part in the other programming that Ahmet will talk about. So we really want to get them into our programs. I also want to mention the expanded role of the Office for Language Assessment, the office that Ahmet directs. So as of this autumn, really over the last academic year, all language testing in the entire campus is centralized now in his office. So aside from ESL testing, we've taken over competency testing, placement testing, advanced proficiency testing, and the new, and actually we want to expand the advanced proficiency testing we're doing. We're introducing tonight a new practical proficiency exam and certificate that he'll introduce to you. All of that testing is centralized in his office. It's all now, of course, available to college students. And that can be a real driver for them. If you finish X amount, you can take this test, get this certificate. This is a demonstrable way of showing the language you know, describing the language you know, describing the outcomes, describing the things you can do. But we can also offer these tests to master's students and PhD students. There's going to be funding in the humanities division to pay for that testing. So if students want to, as we bring more students into our programs and they want to achieve these benchmarks, we can award them with those certificates as well. This was already done in the past in Latin American Studies. We want to open this. It was paid for by that program. This can now be paid for in the division. So we really want to align our courses and our end of first year, end of second year with, describable, measurable outcomes that we can tell students about. Another and almost the last thing I wanted to share with you is the expansion of math. So the master's program in humanities is going to expand into an additional, for students who want to do this, second year, where students can do the math with an emphasis on language study. The second year of the math will be 9 credits of language. So yeah, this is exciting for us as well. So we anticipate that students coming in already knowing commonly taught languages will continue in our intermediate and advanced courses, but that many students will want to add a less commonly taught language. So we want to have programming for those students, thinking about what they need that language for, what kinds of things they can gain, what kinds of proficiency levels they can achieve. And also think about it, Christopher mentioned this, integrating what's going on in the summer and what goes on with summer study abroad with what we're doing during the academic year. If a student comes in to talk about what they want to do with Italian, adding they already know French, that you say, well, yeah, you could maybe take first year Italian during the summer. If we can offer it, maybe we'll be able to, with it moving into the college, take second year Italian, go abroad in the summer between your first and second years of the math, take more Italian, and then all of a sudden they are here only 2 years and they're getting really high proficiency in Italian. So we have a way now to offer this kind of trajectory to students. And finally, this move of the languages, or really all the summer programming, into the college. We don't yet know what will happen to the Summer Language Institute. It has not been decided. But we still, I think, need to think about that component as another component of our academic year programming. There's a real rethinking. They've just hired, I think she just started, the new executive director.
She came on Monday.
Came on Monday. She's here to really think outside. You know, what things could we be doing that that we aren't doing? So, for example, the idea Jamie came up with the idea offering 103 in the first weeks intensively of September to both entering first years or other students who need to finish their language requirement, to get them ready to come into 201 when the quarter starts. Just in the early parts of September, many of our students are a little bit at loose ends. Everyone is back to college and university. The internships are ending. So thinking about the kinds of things we could be meeting the needs of our students while continuing them on learning language. So with all that in mind and all that work in mind for us to do, I want to turn it over to Ahmet, who's going to describe the initiative that was really the purpose of this meeting tonight, that we want to invite you to consider.
Okay, first of all, welcome everybody and thank you for coming. I would like to express how excited I am about this project. I'm really excited because I can see a bright future for it, and I can envision like how it can change things. So with that, I would like to also express my sincerest thanks to college and to Chicago Language Center to launch such a unique, I'm underlining this word, and exciting project. So with that, in the next few minutes, I will try to describe what this initiative about, and then if you can bear with me, maybe following me through that fall-colored kind of flyer, not the blue one, that will be what I'm gonna go through. So this initiative basically intends to offer a range of professional development opportunities based on outcome-oriented instructions, practices, for instructors of all languages across the college and the humanities division. So it is designed to enable students to accelerate language learning and gain proficiency in additional and multiple foreign languages. So, and also based on real-world functional language skills. So if you follow me on the second page, towards the end of second page, where it says timeline, basically that's kind of the snapshot of this initiative in 3 different steps. So I'll go over that with you. So the first step of this initiative is language assessment workshops. So we start with language assessment workshops, and we have, by the way, grants available for each of these steps independently. So in the workshops, we will work on setting realistic outcomes for end of first year, end of second, and also advanced proficiency. And we will create 4 skill assessments for those outcomes. And we know that this is like an external additional note that different programs have a different number of instructors. So this workshop is open to everyone, even if you are not going to design a test. So which is the second step. Even if you are not going to go with the second step, you can still come to the workshop. It's open to everyone because your role might not require that, but it's okay. So we still would like to see you there. So the second step, as I said, is the redesign and development of the 4 skill assessment based on those outcomes we defined, or real-world functional outcomes we defined. And then the third step is the realigning of the curriculum and course development. That is the third grant that we will be introducing. So at each of this step, you will be offered professional development opportunities. And I'm also underlining this point, it's very important, is you will receive ongoing support. From me personally, from Kathy, from Nick, and from other staff at CLC, there's ongoing support at every single step that you'll be working on this project. So with this, why did we choose these 3 steps in this order, putting assessment first? So as you can guess, we are following reverse design model here as a theoretical framework in this initiative. So basically that is language instructor will first identify and define the real-world functional outcomes. We'll start with that. And then design and develop assessment practices. And then finally realign curriculum and then develop the course. So course development in the sequence go to the last and assessment comes to the first. So this is called reverse design based as a theoretical framework. And with this design, we intentionally use assessment as a lever to engineer pedagogic change. So we use assessment intentionally here. Again, I'm repeating, as a lever to engineer pedagogic change. That's why we are following this model. It's so strong model. It's very strongly client-oriented, this model, and our primary clients are our students. So we'll be taking that into account as we do that. So this is like a general snapshot. So I'm gonna go into details of the programming and just let's look at the competency piece, for example, which is the number 1 on the first page. So in the assessment workshop, for example, for the language competency, if you decided to come to that workshop and develop a test of language competency and then redesign and realign the curriculum for the first year instruction, then in the first step in the assessment workshop, we'll be working on together and defining and identifying what real-world outcomes or intended results from first-year language instructions. So we'll be working on this together. And then we will decide and work through what authentic performance tasks will students demonstrate those intended results. What kind of performance tasks can we design so that the students can show those outcomes? And that are measurable, demonstrable, and through what other evidence will students demonstrate the achievement of those intended outcomes? And then by what criteria we will evaluate those performance. So we'll be working on this together to define all of this for the first year, for example. And then the second, we will create those assessments, as I said, as a second step based on these questions I just raised. And then the third one, we will realign the curriculum to these outcomes. So what learning experiences, this time we'll be exploring what learning experiences and instruction will enable students to achieve these intended results. And finally, we will decide and explore on what learning activities and materials will enable students to gain that experience and instruction that we intend attend. So this is basically gonna be the pattern for the second year and also advanced proficiency assessment. So Katie talked about the second year, which is number 2 in the flyer. That's called practical language proficiency assessment. This is new exam. So we'll be doing this exam basically to create an incentive, a very attractive, in my opinion, incentive for students to pursue language study. Because advanced proficiency might be too high for some students and they just might not even think about it. But creating this middle level and also providing a kind of university certificate that shows they know that language is a good incentive. And it has been tried in many different universities and become successful. So I believe this will also create the same impact here for students. So as I said, number 3 is advanced proficiency. So we'll be, again, working from the assessment to the curricula of that. And there are 2 new initiatives that Katie also talked about, the intensive language sequence and also the language course development beyond first and second year will be also part of the grants available here. So with that, I would like to kind of conclude that with this initiative, we acknowledge and compensate at the same time the hard work that we are doing. And then at the same time, we are doing this in a very established theoretical framework. And we provide ongoing support at every single step that you will go through. So with that, I am looking forward to working with all of you, and I hope you consider these grants. I'm very excited, as I said, about this. They look perfect to me. So we'll see how it turns out as an outcome. But I'm going to now pass to Nick, which okay, here, Nick will be, as I said, the last step of this process is course development, which will involve not just that part, but also assessment part. Will involve a lot of technology driven practices. So Nick will be playing a role in that. So I'm going to pass to him to a little bit talk about that. Thank you so much for your attention.
So we're almost done, and then you can go back to eating and drinking. But so very quickly, so just to reiterate what Ahmet was saying, the three main pieces of this initiative are the workshops, the language assessment workshops in December, which are open to everyone. The redesigning the competency assessment or the advanced proficiency assessment, things like that, which are open to each language, and then the redesigning the curriculum to meet those assessments, which once we have the kind of the redesigned assessment, then that will make you make those redesigning course grants available to you. And so then I'm really excited about this too, because I see this as an opportunity to kind of, with you and with Ahmet and all of us, think together, how can we maybe bring some more multimedia into these things, technology, if we're doing assessments, and we want to do 4 skills assessments, how can we do more speaking and listening assessments, both summative at the end of the quarter and formative as the quarter goes on. Some flipped design principles. I'm not asking you to flip your entire class, but thinking what can we have students do at home, and what can we have them do in classroom, and how can technology and multimedia help us do both of those most effectively. And the fourth piece of this, which has not really been said yet, is that we will be hiring, in the Language Center, we will be hiring a full-time person for Assessment and Pedagogy Coordinator. So we will have another staff member here in the Language Center with us. So this will be the coordinator for all of the things that we've been talking about tonight. It will also be a right-hand person for Ahmet with all of this language tests that he's doing across the entire university. And it's also just a sign of how committed the college is to this program and to this initiative, that we can bring someone on full-time to help us with these things.